This is Andy Tube, and this is part 5 of a Singer Model 221 Featherweight motor rehabilitation. And I've done my best at cleaning up the motor and cleaning the commutator. I've put my new grease wicks in and so forth, and I'm looking forward to reassembling the motor and seeing if it still works and seeing if hopefully it works a little bit better after all of this. I did have one little setback here where I had found a grommet for the wire exit from what I call the front of the motor, the pulley end of the motor, and I had kind of glued it in place and so forth, but it's not going to work out like that because the only one I could find to fit in here, the opening isn't big enough for the connectors on the end of the wire. So I took it off, I unglued it, so to speak, and I've cut it, so I may have to put it around the wires and then put it back in. But I'm not too concerned with that for right now. I'd like to have something to protect the wires. But when I held it up to the machine and saw where the wire exits into a hole in the back of the body so the wires can go down to the terminal, they're not exposed very much, and I don't think there'd be any wear and tear, but we'll see. I did make my little protection to replace the original one, which it's kind of beat up and I don't care for it, so I decided to make this one. It's a little bit bigger, but I think I can compress it and get it in there to protect the wires on their way through the machine to the terminal. So we'll see about that. So that's really kind of been my only setback so far. The one thing that I want to do was these ports, these little brass holders in here that the motor brushes go through. I did clean them with a Q-tip and a little bit of the crud cutter cleaner to try and get the old carbon deposits out, and I just wiped off the excess carbon dust on the sides of these. But as I found in some of the PA motors for the slant needles, these can get bent up. So before I put the motor together, I want to be sure that my carbons can go down in them freely, so when I put the caps on, the spring can push against the carbon and get it all the way down onto and keep it against the commutator. So the way I do that is just, you know, stick it in there, and I want to see if it will just kind of fall through or go through, that it's not hung up, and yeah, like that. See, that one went right through. So I know that one is okay. If you remember, the first time I went to take them out, one of the carbon brushes got stuck in the tube and I had to push it out with a stick. So let me be sure I'm turning this so the curve that's worn in matches that, and I'll just check the other side, and yeah, okay, it goes through. So with that done, I'm going to start putting the motor back together. Let's see, this is the motor like this, and this will be facing the back of the machine towards the front. Be sure I get all these parts correct here. Now I need to put this back in, and I had kind of pried these coils of wires open a little bit to be able to get this out. And so I want to get this back through here and situated inside like so. And I'm probably going to have to squeeze these back together a little bit to get the covers on. You can still see a little residue. See that black spot here where this tape had kind of melted against the side of the cover. So I know it's a very tight fit, but I need room for this to move, but I need also room to put the covers on. And with this lubrication to the back, I want to be sure I get the wires tucked away so they won't rub on the commutator at all. And I think I'm going to have to squeeze those wires back together a little bit. But I think it's going to go together like that. So let's see, what will I have to do? I've got to move the wick up out of the way because the spring in there is pushing it down a little bit. Wait, let me squeeze these back together a little bit more. And try this fit again. Seems like in the diagram for this motor it showed these wires crossing near the bottom, but I think as long as they don't rub on the commutator, I'll be okay. That looks pretty good. So let me see if I can push the wick up out of the way and get that there we go. There we go. Get the motor shaft up in there, into the bushing, and all the way back. That looks good. And I'm going to slip on this cover. Some of the motor diagrams showed an insulator piece that looks like this, but it's smaller and it goes on first and then this. And that was in the diagram for the category 3 motor, I think. Maybe it was a different motor. Let me show you the diagram. Okay, you can go back and pause on that if you want to study that more. But I need this to point to the back of the machine, so I've got to turn it that way. Yeah. And then I've got to slide it on here. I better squeeze this a little bit more. Keep squeezing that and get it on here. want to be sure. It seems like this should fit in here. There we go. Should fit in here a little bit better. I remember a little air gap, but the top and the bottom grooves have to fit in there pretty smoothly. Whoops, already made a mistake. I remember now there's these little washers. How come you guys didn't remind me of those? Darn it. There's these little washers on these motor shaft. Got to have those, these little spacers, I think, so that they rub good. And the, let's see, this commutator end, the motor shaft, there was one little washer like that. So can you tell I didn't write out my storyboard for this? Yeah, that's better. That's going to be better. Without those washers, it might not spin as easy, and it might have play like this. So yeah, I did not write out my storyboard. We have set a new record in the city I live in, Phoenix, Arizona, for days over 110 degrees. Our old record was 33 days. Whew. And we are now on day, I think it's 38 or 39. So unless, you know, like this morning at 5 a.m., we hit our low temperature for the day, which was a balmy 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, that was our low for today. Yikes. So, if I'm a little confused or something, I'll put it down to like a heat stroke or something, okay? Couldn't have anything to do with age. Let's get this side in here too. I still call it a jewel of a motor, but it's very, yeah, that's better. It is very compact. See some of the other motors, now not the slant, because they're a 0.7 amp on those slant needle machines. This is only a 0.4. This is the smallest, lowest powered motor I've worked on. But the other, even internal and external motors that I've worked on, they're bigger than this. They're longer. You know, the commutator is actually about the same size, but the armature and stuff is bigger. Okay, so did I do this right? Yes. Okay. Now I've got my 3 washers here. One that I called paper, I think it's some kind of paper fiber. Okay, and then I have a couple of metal ones. I did clean these up a little bit, except for this paper or fiber one. So I'll put that on. Okay. And let's see, I'm going to end up putting this on. It's going to be about like that. This is my end for the pulley, because I've got my flat spot for the set screw that holds the pulley. Okay, so I will feed my wires out the wire port hole. No commutator to worry about on this end, so I'll just feed the wire down just above the hole for the screw that holds these motor pieces together. And I've got to line up, and now I've got, you know what, I have a little tiny bit of that motor grease I put on this brush, and I wanted to do this on the other end too, to have just something in the bushing when I started the motor up, but I forgot to do that, so we'll see how that goes. And I got to get this lined up a little bit, and then I've got to push this wick up out of the way and get this, there we go, get the shaft on there. That looks good so far. Now I've got to try and evenly line up all these parts here. Close tolerances on this, but when it gets together, it's nice, isn't it? It's snug. Let's see how it moves a little bit. Yeah, it feels like it's moving here, so that's a good sign, right? Yay. It doesn't feel like it's hung up on anything. Okay, then I'm going to put the 2 screws or bolts in. They go from the front to the back. Grab a screwdriver, we'll get that one started. And I'm waiting till I get this together before I fill the top of the grease here. You know, it'd be like the spring and everything. It'd be putting the rest of the grease in there. I wanted to get the machine together and see if I had any other problems before I do that. This looks pretty good. When I first ran the motor of this the very first time, it was pretty bad. Of course, the whole machine was pretty bad. Poor Lala. But once I did run it for a little bit, it kind of lubricated the bearings a little bit, and it quieted down. I didn't have a whole lot of speed, but at least I know, okay, the motor is okay. You know, it just needs some rehabilitation and cleaning up and so forth. Get these snug without over tightening them. Okay, so let's go ahead and put in the carbons. And I mentioned I bought new carbons from the Featherweight shop, but the old carbons are almost as long, and I'm just going to keep using them. And somebody asked me about this longer spring. Here, let me get one of the new carbons out. The longer spring on the one from the Featherweight shop. And of course you need a pretty good spring pressure to always keep the motor brush pushed against the, against the, yeah, they shipped them like this. Well, anyway, you see that the spring on theirs is a lot longer here. Oh good, it undid itself. So can you see that? And they asked about those, but one thing I noticed was that like the resistance or tension on the spring was softer or less resistant than the spring on the original ones. Okay, so a stiffer spring, a softer spring. So I don't know if that has to do with the length, but one thing you can do with these type of springs is you can elongate them a little bit if you feel that they've, you know, they're pushed down and held for 50 years or something. You know, you can gently pull them back out a little bit to add a little length to be sure that they'll be long enough once you put them in to always reach the. So you see, it didn't make them much longer, but they were working fine before. So just to add a little bit of length to them, not to go crazy or anything, you know. But these are worn, they are curved, and the commutators like this, so we want the curve to be on that same way. And we're going to drop them down in there. And I just take a little barbecue stick, you could use a toothpick or something, and gently be sure that they're down all the way against the commutator. Okay. Then we're going to put it in there, and I'm going to take my little Bakelite cap and gently twist that in to hold the spring and the brush. Make sure I've got it threaded properly. I think you can buy replacements for these now. I've seen pictures of a lot of broken ones, you know, and I think on mine I'm just going to kind of do them finger tight here. I just want to get them seated, but I don't see any reason to put a screwdriver blade on there. They're firm anyway, so I think I'll be okay. Let me put my new brushes aside here. Okay, I'll make sure I have this one turned properly and get it in. You can kind of hear it. I don't know if you'll hear, if you can hear that sound where it's going right down to the commutator. So I'm not worried about pushing that one down. See if I can just back thread it a little to get it started. There we go. And almost down and down. Good. Okay. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, then I want to get my little pulley to put it back on, and find the hole for the set screw and find the flat spot. I'm going to see how that goes on. I got this all the way back, yeah. because it seems to me like I can push it on so far that the screw will go past the flat spot. So I don't want that. I want it to be on the flat spot. So I need to get this screw started. Let me grab that screwdriver. Okay, let's see if I can get that set screw started in there. Once I cleaned up all these screws and bolts and stuff I took out, because when I was showing you, you know, this is how you take it apart, this is how you put it back together, I had trouble getting the screw started every time I tried to put it in. And now I've cleaned all of these with Crud Cutter and took a little wire brush to them, and now they go in and out very, very easily. I don't have that hard to get them started problem anymore. So there's my flat spot, and there's my set screw. I'm just going to get it on there so I'm sure it's at the flat spot, and I'm going to tighten this little screw up, I think, onto the flat spot there, and I'm going to push it until I feel the screw hits that flat spot and won't go. So I don't know if that is made so that you can adjust this in or out a little bit. I'll have to keep that in mind when I put my new motor belt on there, because the other pulleys I've had went on the exact distance to like be in the center of the flat spot or go into a hole on the motor shaft. And this has a little bit of play area on the flat spot that I don't know, maybe it could be adjusted. Okay, trying to get this so where the motor belt goes in through here, I can look down now and see the screw good and show it to you here. And I'm going to just gently hold the pulley in, because I have the screw in far enough that it hit the end of the flat spot where the motor shaft starts. That way I'm sure it's on the flat spot somewhere. And I don't want to bind the motor shaft or anything, but I want to be sure that this set screw for the pulley is on the flat spot or else it's just going to work loose and start spinning. Snug this up good. Now, just turning it by hand, I'm not feeling any, you know, restrictions or anything. Not feeling any problems. So let me grab my grease, and I'm going to go ahead and fill up the top of that grease tube, I guess I'd call it. If you remember this from the earlier video, or if you didn't see it, this is So Retro grease from the Featherweight shop. I mentioned that before, and I decided to go ahead and spring the cost for it because their video of melting points and the way the grease worked made a lot of sense to me. And it came just like this in a little applicator and everything. So I want to get down in here and go ahead and fill up till I see it kind of pushing out the top there, and then I will come do the other one here. Now they say to use this on the gears of the machine, and I've already mentioned I'm not going to do that. I know how hot those gears get on the 301 and 401 and so forth, and I just think this is a little bit too light a weight of grease for that. And when I get to that video, I'll show you. I'll be using the Tri-Flow Clear synthetic grease because it has I think it stays on the gear much better, and it has a much higher melting point. Okay. So I'm going to have to do a lot of machines to justify using all that grease. Look at that. Could do a lot of machines with this, right? Could have a nice motor lube party. Everybody pitch in a couple bucks, get a half dozen people or so, and have a motor lube party. All right. I did clean up the inside of the motor. You saw the spray. I cleaned up the outside. I'll cover later how I did that when I do the cleaning video. But there's the hole for the motor mounting screw. But what I'm going to do is get my little electric clips and stuff, and I want to just hook up the motor and hear it run. See if it'll run, and if it does, how well does it run. Okay, I've got the old pedal rigged up to it here, and I'm just going to try it out here slowly. Oh, snappy, huh? I know you can't see it spinning. You'll have to just strictly go by the sound. Let's add a little more power. There we go, flat out. Vroom, vroom. I suppose I could have tied a piece of string or something to the pulley, but I think you'll get the idea. I'm very happy. It's very smooth, and it's to me it's quieter. It's probably hard for you to tell. Like a little propeller. Okay, I'm happy. I'm a happy guy with that. So, what's left for me then is to, well, I want to see if my wires will go through here and just see how that looks. If we can maybe fish them up through there one at a time. There it comes. one of them. And there's the other. Not even sure this is necessary, but they had a protector in there before, so I think I might as well replace it. It's going to slip in the machine. I'm not going to mount it on the machine at this time because I'm going to take everything I put on it back off, and I'm going to do a cleaning video. I want to get the interior clean and figure out how to clean the exterior, and then I can put everything back on and adjust it. And I still need to do the whole tension unit video, so that's ahead. But I'm happy with the motor, very happy now. I'm happy with the motor, but I'm also wondering how many of you caught on to my joke. How many of you realize what I did wrong on the motor? And I wonder how many of you are not even watching this because you quit watching to go to the comment, and you were dying to make a comment that I put the pulley on backwards. And I did. And it's going to be interesting to me to see how many of you caught it. If you put the pulley on the way I did in the video, you can see here that the belt is going to go back here, and it's not going to fit on the pulley. It's going to be behind the pulley. And I made quite a deal about the flat spot, you know, and partially putting in the set screw so that you could push it back and feel the back of the flat spot and stuff. So I was just having a little fun here. The pulley doesn't go on like I did in the video because it sticks out too far. So the set screw, of course, does go on the flat spot, but the larger flat part of the pulley goes on first. Okay, let me find my set screw, and then you'll see that by putting it on like this and pushing it back, that the shaft ends perfectly now, and you can see the little flat spot on the pulley, so you know where to line up your set screw. And you'll see now that the pulley is inside the guides for the belt. Okay, so that's where it has to go. Okay, let me just turn this flat spot up into the guide area and get my set screw over that flat spot. Now you don't want to squeeze it on real tight, the pulley, because you don't want to cause any binding against the motor housing or anything. And again, you can look right there at the end of the shaft, and you can see the flat spot on the shaft, and then you can just gently hold the pulley all the way onto the motor shaft, and then you can go in there, and now you're going to tighten up your set screw very firmly on that flat spot. Okay, now that makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? Okay, for those of you that saw it and were wondering, wow, what happened to Andy? Man, I can't believe he's doing that backwards. I just thought I'd have a little fun. What the heck, maybe it's the heat. But I still thank you for watching the video, and I am not going to mount it, you know, on the machine, because I'm going to strip the other stuff back off the machine. My next video will be about cleaning the machine. I'm especially interested in cleaning the inside parts and the gearing and stuff like that, and then figuring out the best way for me to clean the exterior of the machine. Then I'll be going on to videos about the tension, that I haven't done the tension. And I found out, a couple people have shared with me, the secret way to line up the needle bar. When you're setting the height, and you have to line up the needle bar and presser foot with the feed dog. And there's a very interesting way that I didn't catch, I'd never heard of before, but I did get notified by a couple people who kind of discovered it when they were working on their 221. So I'll be doing that too in the future. So there's plenty to come back to AndyTube 4. If not this Lala series, then don't forget my other 500 plus videos on my playlist page, grouped by model number. Take care, everybody. See you soon.